All right, let's talk with Sunny in Indiana.
All right.
Sunny, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, guys. And by the way, I would absolutely listen to you guys talk philosophy. I'm down for that.
Nice. All right, what can we help you with today?
All right, well, I've been before, and we talked about VR, and I mentioned that I have a grandmother who's a theist who's having a hard time grappling with the concept of VR, is good or bad. All right, so this is about her, and I want to preface this by saying that she is the best person in the world. I will fight anybody who says otherwise. And I don't want to direct any sort of condescension towards her, so I just would like to ask everybody. I know that you two aren't going to have a problem with this, but people in general,
I get it.
Be, respectful towards my grandma, because I love her and I will fight you. But, so the issue here is, so she is an evangelical Christian, hardcore, and she is horribly worried about my eternal soul.
Yeah,
because I am not. And usually whenever we get together, we'll spend, hours hanging out. We went fishing in VR a couple of days ago and had a really wonderful time.
Oh, yay!
But, it was great. But she always tends to draw the conversation towards trying to convert me to Christianity. And she's really polite about it. She's kind, she's thoughtful. But it always goes to that. And I feel bad for her because I really do not believe. I've tried. I can't.
Yeah.
I just can't wrap my brain around it. And she'll sit there and try to talk me into it. And I feel like it's just a one-sided conversation for her because I respect her and I love her. And we've had a serious argument over it before and I just felt awful afterwards.
Yeah.
So I've stopped trying to argue my point so strongly. And usually I'll just sit there and listen to what she's saying and nod and smile and acknowledge when things are interesting and hard to explain.
Yeah.
And then just let that go. But I feel like she's just sitting there feeling awkward, waiting for me to come around, and I'm just not going to.
I feel you.
I don't know what to say to her. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel terrible about it.
I've got a grandmother exactly like that, honestly. Best, most generous, kind person in the world. Obviously, we can have a duel, Sunny, if we need to, about whose grandmother is actually the best person in the world. But
all right, I got my fisticuffs up.
So
pistols at dawn. I will be your second V.
Oh my gosh. She will send me cards regularly, and they're very sweet, and they are the nicest things to get. Except that in them is always this deep-rooted fear that when she passes away, she is never going to get to see me again because I'm not going to be in heaven with her. And this is a thing that is really heartbreaking to experience on both ends, right? This is two people who care about each other. And on the one end, she's worried about my eternal soul that she truly and deeply believes is a thing. And I'm worried about her right now feeling bad about worrying about my soul. So
that's exactly where I'm at.
Yeah. So the things that I've done so far that seem to have at least kind of pulled back the amount of conversation that is happening is I will engage, and what I've said is, she's like, I just don't want to see you go to hell. And I've said, hey grandma, listen, you believe that God is all loving, right? And she says yes. And I say, well, I honestly want to know if God exists. And I'm being 100% honest in where I am in that journey and that I am not convinced. And do you think that an all-loving, all-good God would punish somebody? Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
And it kind of stops the conversation. At least it has in my experience. She's been like, well, anyway, this other thing. So I think meeting her where she's at and giving her those moments of maybe a little bit of cognitive dissonance, maybe just a little bit of that, hey, I understand where you're coming from. This isn't me not getting it. This is me being honest about where I am, has helped me. And I'm glad to hear that you've been kind of employing a similar thing. Yeah. Other than that, though, honestly, the way that I see it with people who are honestly good people who you want to maintain relationships with, and this is just a thing that they like to talk about, is I have, my little brother is super into Marvel, you know, and he will lock me down and talk to me about Marvel stuff. And it's, I get it. I've seen some of the movies. I haven't read the comics, but like, I know what he's talking about and I can engage on that level, but I'm not going to become a super fan, right? And so just kind of treating it as like her fandom and being like, you really want to share your excited fandom with me, and I'm going to listen and engage and maybe push back a little bit where appropriate, and then I'm going to move on with my life.
That's exactly what I've been doing. It's great.
I have a different approach.
Okay, here we go.
I'm eager to listen to this.
Well,
Go on.
It is not as fun.
It is not as fun.
Well, I'm hanging out.
Well, I think that is very, very useful, and I would actually preface those conversations with your grandma by saying, "Oh, what?
Can we raise Sunny's volume a little bit?"
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
I apologize, Sunny. I am going to raise your volume up.
I'll refrain from yelling into the microphone.
No worries. Actually, being a little bit louder in the meeting. No, I've got you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. So, what I was going to say is, Sunny, make sure that you preface that with your grandma and say, hey, you know, if you want to have this discussion and you just want to share the thing that you love, as long as I'm interested in that, that's fine. But where it gets inappropriate is when they say, no, you need to be a super fan. And
actually, she doesn't go that far. She's
good.
Really respectful of that.
Good.
Like she just wants me to try to believe. Like it's what she always goes back to. She's like, I just want you to genuinely put it in your heart, put it out there. Maybe like, you know, try to pray once in a while and maybe see where it gets you.
So I might ask, you know, if I try genuinely and it doesn't get the result that you want, does that mean that I didn't try? Or do I need to try until I get the result that you want?
I think that she's expecting me to try until I get the result that she wants.
But here's the thing. If you remove the expectation, if you say, hey, if I try and it doesn't work, will you accept that I tried, or would you think that I lied to you? Because what that's going to cause is that's going to cause her to stop and think, oh my gosh, I'm putting pressure on Sunny that I did not realize I was doing. Another thing,
I actually really like that.
Yeah, another thing you can do is if it does get pushy, and I understand you're saying your grandma is not that pushy, but for people who are watching who don't have your grandma, I do want people to know that when it comes to these kinds of conversations, especially these kinds of relationships, you don't necessarily need to ideologically, you know, butt up against them. You can say, hey, I really love talking to you. You're one of my favorite people in the world. But every time this conversation comes up, it becomes a problem, and it becomes an impediment to our being able to have a relationship. And so if you want to have these conversations with me, you need to understand that I need to be an equal part of that conversation. Because if you're not, if I'm not an equal part of that conversation, then you're not talking with me, you're talking at me.
Right.
And if you just share that, hey, I'm uncomfortable, hey, I'm disappointed, or something like that, especially with grandmas, you know, in those kinds of relationships, they'll often go, well, you know what? I need to find a better way of doing this, maybe a way that will work for all of us. And just reinforcing those relationships. You know, you can have these conversations without worry about hurting the relationships. You can reinforce the relationships at the same time as setting healthy boundaries.
Right.
I like that. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Absolutely.
Yeah. not as fun, but
Well, I mean,
yeah, and I think she understands too. I think that she can tell that it makes me a little uncomfortable because I feel so bad for her because after the last conversation that we had on the topic, she kept apologizing profusely and saying, "I'm sorry. I feel like I really need to. I feel the love of God soaring through my body, and I feel like I just really need to share it with you." And I put my hands on both sides of her face and I said, "That is the sweetest thing ever. That you love me so much that you're willing to try to save my immortal soul that you believe in." I said, "That is the sweetest thing ever, and I love you. Thanks." And then I gave her a hug, and that was the end of that one.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on though, and I love that you brought your perspective in here, Eric. I think the options are not talk to me about it or don't talk to me about it, right? The options are let's find a way to talk about this together in a way that makes me feel like I'm part of the conversation too.
And if not, then I more often than not, Sunny, I talk to people who are in a relationship that's a lot more pushy. And more often than not, the non-believer who calls and asks, "Hey, what do I do?" or writes in or whatever the case is, they say, "What do I do?" One of the first things they need to do is stop taking all of the weight and pressure of taking all of it on the nose and going, "I don't want you to know that I'm uncomfortable when you're making me uncomfortable." They're an adult and they should know, hey, I'm making the person I love uncomfortable. And that matters.
I think that's fair. I think that's something that I've definitely been, neglecting in myself. That it does make me uncomfortable, but I'm more worried about making her feel bad if I tell her I'm uncomfortable.
But here's the thing: if she felt kind of bad for making you uncomfortable,
yeah, she did. I could tell it did make her feel bad.
That's fair. That's what humans do when they realize that they've, pushed things too far with the people that they love. But she knows why. I mean, it's not like you didn't communicate why. Those uncomfortable feelings aren't things that you should run away from. V actually has a whole lot to say about those kinds of things. That you should. The goal of an uncomfortable conversation. V, do you want to? I'm stealing all of your.
Oh no, you're good. Essentially, there's this idea that in order to have a good conversation, it has to be comfortable. And that's not necessarily true, right? Like, it's most comfortable to have comfortable conversations, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those are the best conversations to have. And a lot of the time, when one person walks away from a difficult conversation saying, "Wow, that was super comfortable. I feel really good about that," it's because the other person has been sitting in all of the discomfort themselves and not doing anything about it. So it's a shift. It's a mindset shift for sure. But kind of separating bad conversation from difficult or uncomfortable conversation, I think is just a good philosophy in life. And since your grandma does seem like someone who's very open to having these kinds of conversations and engaging in that, this might be a really good place to start playing around with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, and I'm definitely not going to try to shake her face because it is so important to her, and she's definitely getting up there in age, and she's at the point where she's definitely, it wouldn't be good for her to have her face shaken at this point, I don't think. So I'm totally happy with letting her have her beliefs, and I'm not going to try to convince her otherwise. But I feel like this was a good conversation we just had, and I appreciate the points of view that both of you brought. And V, I'm definitely exactly where you're at in that, and I'm going to take into consideration what Eric said for sure.
Perfect.
I appreciate you both taking my call and talking to me about it.
Absolutely.
And I'll see you at dawn.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Sunny. Have a lovely holiday season.
All right, you too.
Aww.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, if you are heading home for the holidays and you know that there is a person in your family who is going to want to have these kinds of conversations with you, whether they are people who you really care about and you want to have this conversation effectively and well, or maybe it's somebody who is kind of a butt and you want to have a little bit of that sparring, call in, run by us what you would want to say, and we'll test things out.
That could be fun.
Oh my gosh.